What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MyMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And this is The Boys, Season 4, Episode 5. We're back, and I think the internet is having a time with The Boys. We'll get into that. First, I want to talk about the episode a little bit. It's still on Amazon, in case you didn't know where the show was, and it has audio description. I feel like I have to acknowledge that. And both of those things are true. I really dug this episode. I thought it was pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. The giving V to animals was nuts. That part was insane. And the sheep that were attacking, and I don't know, that whole thing was just so bizarre and so nuts and hilarious. And the guy where the eggs just like burst out of him all of a sudden, they really went for it. I didn't know where we were headed. I know that we brought Giancarlo Esposito back. That man gets around. He's what's that Beach Boys song? Run, round, get around, not get around. Yeah, basically that's Giancarlo Esposito's song for his life. That man is in everything. He's back again. He did not leave The Boys. He's just been in jail this whole time. So they get him out with the auspice that he will get pardoned if he can give them the cure. Like, the boys believe that there is a cure somewhere, other than what happened and where it was destroyed. There's a sort of like a reference to Gen V here. This is the first episode that really truly references Gen V, in the most overtly obvious way, I should say. Yes, Gen V is a thing. So he takes them to another facility, and it's a facility that's been testing V on animals. And so that is absolutely insane. And that's kind of where Butcher and Milk and Starlight and Frenchie and Yumiko all spend the chunk of the film, along with the head popper, the presidential candidate, and Giancarlo Esposito's character, whose name I've already forgotten. They brought him back for one episode, and I was like, damn, now I have to try to remember your name. Edgar. Yes, I got it. Look at that. Pulled it. So they're all out in the middle of the farm. Basically, the whole episode, Starlight's powers are flickering. They're not entirely sure why. She did just have the fight with Firecracker, and it's not really boding well for her. Basically, the tide is turning against the Starlighters. We see that through the media, and Firecracker's statements about how it's war on Starlighters. And Firecracker she has some screen time here. It's not as much as she's had in some other. Her biggest scene is with her and Sage, where she just calls out Sage on, like, you left me to die, basically, and I didn't. So maybe you should stop underestimating me, type of thing. Sage is still kind of just sitting back. I feel like she's just watching and just trying to figure out, like, what do we got? What's going on? I feel like, again, the whole thing about her being the smartest person is, I do feel like she is ahead of people. Like, she is 10 steps ahead. And I think she knows it's A-Train. And that's why she makes that comment to A-Train. But they obviously end up allowing somebody else to be the scapegoat. And I think Sage is just okay with that, because I think it's going to come back around later on that she still knows it's A-Train. So, but she doesn't have tactical powers. So to go up against anybody who does have tactical powers, she has to be really careful, which is part of her intelligence thing. Because A-Train could just grab her and run her, like, all the hell away. And it's like, where's Sage? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. What, in a pit somewhere? I don't you know? Yeah, that's the thing, is that she has no combat powers. So she has to be very careful about how and when she makes her moves. Especially with Homelander, who really easily blows people's heads off all the time. And we see a very different Homelander, who has been changed by the experience he had in the last episode, where he basically killed all of the scientists that created / raised him as a child and ran tests on him and caused him to be the insane person that he is today. It actually, in many ways, humanizes Homelander a little bit, because now that we know his background and he acknowledges that, instead of him, like, he was freakishly scary in the previous episode, but he seems to have done some, like, inner thoughts on everything, and the conversations that he has with Ryan feel a lot more genuine. And he's like, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. I spent my whole life with people telling me what to do. So what is it that you want to do? You know? And he does listen to Ryan, and Ryan does make the choices. Now, Ryan does not make good choices, but instead of telling Ryan what to do, Ryan finally becomes sort of the leader of his future in this episode. And it shows that there's a lot more Homelander in there than Butcher's willing to acknowledge. A lot more Homelander inside of Ryan than Butcher's willing to acknowledge. So, not necessarily great for the future. Although, I don't know. There's a difference, though, is that Homelander likes to blow somebody's head off, whereas Ryan just finds the punishment funny in this situation. And it didn't involve somebody dying. It was maybe a little bit extreme for what it was, but it also didn't involve somebody dying. So he's also not at that point yet. He says he wants to help people and wants to save people. And he was previously uncomfortable with having killed somebody. So he's not full Homelander yet. So maybe there's some hope in that Butcher storyline where Butcher wants to try to save Ryan and turn him around. We do only have like one season to achieve this after this. So we're already like over halfway through this season. So they don't have that many more episodes in this season to do it, and then they only have one more. So, Edgar's safe. He gets instead of being taken back to prison, we saw him be saved. And then Milk's storyline included the fact that his daughter is getting into fights at school over Homelander, and his wife is mad at him about that. Frenchie is still deeply disturbed by his past, and at the end of the episode ends up turning himself into the cops. I don't know how that's going to work out, because I think he's technically considered like a government agent at this point, because of his him working with Milk. It's working under. It's just the things that he knows and says. It's normally one of those things like when you do it in another movie, you can't go and admit to things, because then it opens up the doors to investigations on other people. But I don't know how that works in the universe of The Boys, where there aren't real investigations and people just kind of get killed off. So it'll be interesting to see what Frenchie's admission, if it has any legs. I could also see somebody just coming in and like releasing him, and like, great, you killed people, thanks, you're free to go. Like, who does it anymore? So there's that. And I guess kind of the other part of the episode is Huey, which is Huey's dad, and they're going for it. They are going for gore. The Boys has always gone for gore, which is going to lead into my thing at the end of this. But basically, that has been... they've always seemed to want to top themselves. And so the power that his dad got was the ability to phase in and out. I guess he feels like he hasn't been seen his whole life, so somehow that has given him the power to phase. Because he says something about, like, you never really saw me, to his ex-wife when because he also, because of his brain damage, he's experiencing what best can be described as situation Alzheimer's. Like, it just kind of comes and goes. It's there, and he forgets where he is and what year it is. Totally slips out of reality where he is. They find him in a room, and he's ripped some dude's heart out, and he doesn't know why. And he phases through things, but man, he phases into somebody, like in the middle of somebody, and the description on that was so, like, he's still struggling to get out of this person's body. You would think it would have hurt him. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my only, like, back and forth on that is, I think about in X-Men, because Nightcrawler talks about jumping where he can't see he doesn't know where he's going. You know, making a jump to where he doesn't know where he's landing. And essentially what could happen is that he could get stuck in a wall and die. You know, not that he's stronger than the wall and would jump into a wall and the wall would explode open without hurting him. But that's kind of what happens here, is that Huey's dad ends up phasing into, and then phasing, and then becoming, materializing within somebody, but doesn't hurt him. And I think that is maybe the stretch when we've talked about it sort of in the context of other heroes who have similar powers. It's like, why didn't it hurt him? If anything, that sequence, I know it would have been less interesting because it would have ended the whole thing, and you're just going for gore, but when I'm thinking about the use of the powers in terms of, like, superhero universes and breaking down something that's really insane to kind of try to figure out and break down theoretically, it's odd that it didn't hurt him. Two people trying to share the same space, it shouldn't have completely defaulted to him. His skin is not impenetrable. So there's that. Anyway, yeah. So Huey has to put down his dad, basically. There's this talk about how his dad's like, oh, I didn't want to be like this cat that I guess had leukemia and diarrhea and then eventually kind of like exploded. I'm like, there are exploding cats out there? If you leave your cat with leukemia too long without putting it down, it'll explode? Like, what does that mean? Anyway, yeah, so take care of your pets, guys, because they might explode. That's kind of the big parts of the episode. I mean, there were some other things. Ashley was there. She showed up. She had some thoughts. She's not really that big of a character anymore. They've kind of nerfed her, even though she becomes somewhat useful and gets a little bit of vengeance. Let's be honest, she's like an episode or two away from just being lasered. There isn't really like a reason to not at this point. So that's The Boys, and I know that the internet is, and I acknowledge this, and somebody in one of my videos commented and said, you know, I think it says something about both sides, because I said, you know, after the third episode, I was like, well, it's clear what this show is trying to say this season, and there's a very direct correlation between MAGA, Trump, and Homelander, and Team Homelander and what that looks like, and the people who support him, and are drawing that line, which has triggered one of... I actually enjoy his reviews, because he thinks most of the time, and he's become sort of like a sort of a little bit of a magnet for all of those anti-woke / anti-Disney people, and that's the Critical Drinker. And he made a video about The Boys in which he states that you know, he liked season 1, he even recommended season 1, but he thinks the show has become a far cry of what it used to be. I kind of disagree with that, but at the same time, I kind of wonder, my question would be, if you feel that way, if the tables were flipped and it was representing all of your values in a positive light and going the other way with it, would you feel the same way? Like, if this was going the other way and was trying to sell you everything positively, you know, on the way that you think, and trying to make the other side look bad, trying to make like liberals and everything look worse, right? And make it look like MAGA was the way of life, and turns it around so the Homelander's the hero, and the correlation between him. If it made that flip, would you be making the same comments? Or are you just making them because you see yourself becoming the villain? You know, that whole thing from The Dark Knight, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Anyway, I think it's perspective. I think when you focus on The Boys, on the core of The Boys has always been about subverting expectations. It hasn't just been about calling out the media and calling out corporate structure, which is what he says season 1 is about. Cool. They're not going to do that for 5 seasons. For 5 seasons, it becomes kind of monotonous. So they do kind of tackle a different thing each season. Last season, they, tackled different things. Stormfront brought in a whole thing about white supremacy that they tackled. So they kind of go after different issues at different times. This is just the new issue. Season 5 will be a different one. They will have a different voice and a different thing that they want to focus on how they want to end the show, with a different lean and a different perspective. So probably like total nihilism, just like total anarchy / nihilism, world-ending stuff. I'm guessing, because that's kind of where we're headed with Homelander, since he doesn't really like anybody on the planet. Something probably big could happen heading in that direction at the end of the season. It sets forth a big season, final season. So this series has always been about shock value, about getting you riled up, about getting people talking in any way possible, whether it's through the subject matter, whether it's through the images, through the violence, through the sexual content. Anybody remember that little guy who like went inside the penis? I mean, if you haven't seen it on The Boys, it doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying? Like, The Boys feels like it's a preparation for, like for people who are like, I don't know about horror movies. I don't want to watch them. They're too scary and they're too gory. It's like, why don't you watch The Boys and see what gore in a different context is like for you, and then see if you can start watching scary movies? Because I feel like they're always trying to up the ante, and I feel like they always have. I mean, this series literally opens up with like A-Train running through somebody so they explode. I mean, the series has never really shied away from that. And it has featured absolutely brutal, sadistic, gory violence in like all throughout the series. So to say that The Boys has completely lost its path is not really true. It's just if you start seeing the things that you relate to represented in what you knew from the beginning to be the villain, then suddenly it's like less fun. But like I said, that the person who commented on my own video is basically suggesting that he sees it poking fun at both sides. So he's fine with it and he wants to see how the show ends. So it's all in perspective. If you feel like you're being attacked personally, you don't want to watch it anymore, which is what I acknowledged in the 3rd episode. But to post a whole review about how you think that The Boys has gone down, and then to use internet as a basis for things, by the way. Be like, I need to validate my opinion, so I'm gonna see what the score is on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's the audience score, because those shills on the tomato meter, it's like, dude, you could be one of those shills, and you know you could, you know you have enough followers, like, what, you know, it would take the Critical Drinker all like 5 minutes to become a tomato meter approved critic. So yeah, it's really just like, and then what? So he becomes a shill, you know. At that point, does he sell out by joining the tomato meter? I don't know. Listen, nobody's paying me. I don't have any sponsored ads. I come on here and I like The Boys. I like The Boys. I liked The Boys before. I liked The Boys when it didn't have a political leading. I like The Boys still. I've liked The Boys all the way through. I like House of the Dragon. I liked The Acolyte at the beginning, not so much now. You know, I'm really honest about my opinions and about where they stand, and that's what I'm trying to put out there every single time. And I just think if you're trying to say that by politicizing season 4 of The Boys, that somehow The Boys has become not The Boys, is maybe missing the point of The Boys, which is the fact that The Boys cannot be put into a box and be told what to do. The Boys is probably going to do some crazy shit. We have 3 more episodes left this season, and then presumably 8 in the final, unless they extend it, unless Amazon gives them more episodes for a final run. So, with that knowledge, and everything about every episode that you've watched, they've always done something really crazy. They just, something way out of left field, some death or gore or something that somebody had to think up in a room, and they're always trying to subvert your expectations so that way you don't see it coming. And that's why I love The Boys. So, and that's why I've always loved The Boys. And if you're really a fan of The Boys, that's why you still love The Boys. If you don't like seeing yourself represented, fine. I wouldn't either, you know? And that's valid. But, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's a little bit, I feel like maybe you're still missing a little bit of the point of the show, which is it's gonna do what it's gonna do, and censors be damned, audience members be damned, ratings be damned. It has complete creative control, and by God, that's a beautiful thing. So I'm gonna give The Boys season 4 episode 5 an A. I think it's great, and I think, you know, the giving thought to animals is a perfect example of why The Boys is still great in season 4. I think people are losing track of that. It's because they don't see it because they see the other stuff, and they don't want to see, you know, what would happen if we gave thought to some sheep. You know, like, brilliant is the answer. So, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the other side.